Welcome to the Murali End. My name's Mark Machado. I'm joined by Sri Lanka's #1 journalist, SLvBAN Devon, and I'm joined by the Professor of Cricketology, Dominic Machado. We are here to review Sri Lanka's second day of the second test against Bangladesh. It's been another fantastic day for Sri Lanka, following up from yesterday. We managed to get Bangladesh all out for 247, and we finished the day 290 for 2. Slightly disappointing for Dinesh Chandimal, who got out at 93. The first time he's ever got out in the 90s in Test cricket. If you haven't heard about us before, we talk about Sri Lankan cricket all the time, everywhere we go, and occasionally online. So give us a follow, give us a like, give us a subscribe. Tell all your friends, tell your family about us, because we need to kind of keep growing the movement, keep growing what we do. It's a labour of love and of passion as well. So if you're passionate about Sri Lankan cricket, so we join the party. Leave your comments, leave your thoughts, leave your questions, and we'll try and get to them during the show as well. Esther, you were on the show yesterday, so Dominic, I'll come to you first. What's your thoughts after another magnificent knock from Pathum and Sri Lanka firmly in control?
Brilliant from Pathum. Brilliant. And I think, Mark, you retweeted this, but it's really his mentality that differentiates him from the batters we've seen in the post-Sangha Mahela generation. Is he has a pure hunger for runs. He's going to do anything possible to score runs. So the story goes that he talked to his psychological mentor about not being able to score big runs in tests in Sri Lanka. And the mentor had suggested maybe changing his outfit, going from short sleeves to long sleeves. He puts on the long sleeves for both of these tests, and from my understanding, it's quite muggy and humid in Colombo, and he scores hundreds in back-to-back test matches. So, one, the initiative to think, okay, I'm struggling with this. How can I change my mental approach? Because the talent is all there. We've always known the talent is all there. And I just love the fire that he brought with him to the crease this morning. He came out, wanted to score runs. He and Udara put on 60 in the first 10 overs, and that really broke the back of the Bangladeshi attack. And then he kind of sort of went into pilot mode, and he offered maybe one shout chance, but it was basically a chanceless innings. It was a brilliant innings, and seeing him score not just 100, but now he's on 145, I think. He's getting towards these big hundreds is also a huge accomplishment. And having a player like Pathum opening the batting and becoming not just a guy who scores runs, but a true match winner is one of the best developments that Sri Lanka cricket has seen in the last 10 years.
Esty, we've been banging the drum for Pathum since his debut, which was about 5 years ago now. What I find absolutely incredible with the way he's gone about his work as a professional cricketer is just the constant improvement that we see. You know, Dom talked about working with a psychologist. You can see that he's much more comfortable at this level of cricket today than he was 6 months ago. Even, you know, even when he was in England or when he was in South Africa, he's improving all the time. They were talking in commentary about how in the other formats he's had to adapt the way he's played slightly, and he's improved there. We'll get into and I think almost about 9 months ago, we did a deep dive on one of our episodes where we were looking at the way he was scoring runs and the runs, what his averages were compared to other Sri Lankan greats at this stage of their career, and it's quite favourable. I mean, Esty, have you got any thoughts or ideas about where his ceiling might be? Like, what should our expectations be of him at this point?
I mean, seeing how he's gone over the last couple of years, you spoke about the other formats. I think when he did make his debut, the idea was that, you know, Test cricket is his format, right? He's ideally suited for Test cricket. And I remember seeing him on debut and how well he played. He just looked like such a natural. He looked like someone who'd made a lot of runs, and he had at that point at domestic level. He just looked the part in Test cricket, and then he was obviously pushed into the ODI and T20 setup, and he didn't quite look as natural as he did in Test cricket, did he? So there was a lot of criticism. I remember talk about strike rates and all of that. But if you look at him now and how far he's come in colored clothing, you've seen that kind of growth year by year, right? Season by season, he's just gotten better. And what I find interesting is that you often you pigeonhole players into formats based on what you think their abilities are, but through someone like Pathum, you see if there is that effort and the mentality, you can get better and you can make yourself or build yourself into a player who can be successful in all three formats of the game, which it's a rare thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't see a lot of three format players around the world now, particularly because test cricket is not played as much as it was maybe 10 years ago, particularly for countries like Sri Lanka. But the way he's gone about things, and the example Dom used, also you have to look at the strike rate and the improvement he's shown in white ball cricket to see
Mhm.
that it's difficult to set a ceiling or set a bar for him, because he's the type of player who seems to always want to improve and want to get better and implement things that are happening around you. And it would be easy, right, for him, because he's basically a dead set opener for Sri Lanka in limited overs cricket, at least for the foreseeable future. It would be easy for him to kind of sit back and say, "Look, I've been making runs. There's really not much else I need to do." But I think his goals are beyond being the best opener in Sri Lanka, and rather like trying to be the best player that he can be in international cricket. And that's why we're seeing the improvement in terms of ceiling. Like I said, like it's very difficult to set a standard, right? Because when we saw him first, we thought, okay, this guy's going to be really good at test cricket, but ODI and T20 cricket might not be his cup of tea. But he's shown that with kind of that intent to actually learn and get better, there's really the, I mean the possibilities are kind of limitless, right?
Yeah, he doesn't. I'm glad you got this question up, Dom, from Neelan, because I know Neelan's watching Australia and it's very, very late there. He's asked, "Hey guys, quick questions. Thoughts on how positive Sri Lanka's played in terms of runs and their intent?" We heard I think after the first or second day of the first test, DDS was talking about how they wanted in this cycle up their their batting. We are definitely seeing that, aren't we, Dom?
Yeah, and the reason I brought this up is to think about the way that Pathum is scoring his runs, which I think is another step up. We've seen Sri Lankan batters score runs. We've seen them have healthy averages. But what Pathum is doing is he's pressing the accelerator. He's playing fearless cricket, and he's scoring runs in a manner that will win matches, not just maintain respectability, but he's going for the throat. He's not scared of getting out. He's not worried about posting a low score. He wants to push on the tempo of the game, score runs quickly, and he understands that that is how games are won in 2025. And as Estelle said, thinking about where he started as a player who you'd imagine scoring 100 off of 250 balls, right? That was the kind of player we imagined. He's now turned himself into a match winner, into a positive player, into a player who can bring Sri Lanka cricket forward. And I think it's been a long recovery since the post Mahela Sangha retirement. The fact that we're still talking about this 10 years after, a decade after. But I think we're starting to see players who are thinking about, how do we play cricket in this day and age? How do we win matches in this day and age? And not just stay in the team, not just score enough runs to look impressive on a resume, but to actually win matches and make Sri Lanka cricket a competitive side that is capable of taking down and beating any team in the world.
If you're watching, you got any thoughts or comments or questions, then send them in. Neelan's also written, "My opinion, Pathum will be Sri Lanka's greatest all-format player. Thoughts? Could be too early, but he has adapted so well." The only thing I'd say, right, we aren't a small fry cricket team like England or Bangladesh or South Africa. To be one of our all-time greats, you need to do it consistently for about 15 years, and you need to get us to finals and win finals as well, right? If you look at our Sri Lankan goat farm, those guys and girls have achieved a lot in their careers. So I mean, I definitely feel like he can get into that place. He can get it. Estelle, while we were kind of waiting to get on, we were talking about how it feels to me like Pathum is just another piece in a bigger jigsaw that is slowly, us lot who probably overanalyze Sri Lankan cricket can see kind of starting on the shore. You can see the turtles are all lining up to kind of to surf into the beach, and Pathum's one of those turtles because there's a few other players when you look at this. In particularly more so in the white ball format, where you're like they're match winners. You look at Kaminda, you're like he's a match winner. You look at Wadi, you're like he's a match winner. He's won us matches before. You look at Deekshana, you're like he's a match winner. Patarana's a match winner. You're like Kusal Mendes is a match winner, and you're like suddenly, oh right, you've got 5 or 6 match winners there. You just need a few more. We're starting to pull it together, aren't we, Estelle? We can start to. I think if you're a Sri Lanka fan, you should be starting to think about dreaming. Like think about how good the sleep's going to be for the dream, right? Think about maybe you don't need to get yourself drunk every night to fall asleep if you're going to dream about Sri Lankan cricket. Like you could just go to sleep anxiety-less. Like I think it's fair. Do you think this is all fair, Estelle, or am I over egging it as per usual?
I was gonna say that's the most Mark comment we've had in a while, isn't it?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
It's the definition of what Mark would say when it comes to anything. I think so. We've had this kind of potential over the last couple of years, right? Since the 2021 T20 World Cup, you've seen that where you've got kind of the ingredients to make a really great team. You've got players who can on their day really produce something special. It's the fact that in big games against big teams, you've not really seen that consistently enough, right? And that's I think there's got to be also a mental aspect to that, because as I mentioned, like if you look at the past World Cups, it's against the bigger teams that they've kind of met with the block, like where you're not seeing 2 or 3 or 4 of those players really coming together and performing at the same time. You're seeing 1 or 2 getting runs or 1 or 2 getting wickets. So that would be, I think, the biggest thing that Sri Lanka cricket needs to address. It's interesting to hear that, Pathum's been consulting with someone, and, the resources are now there when it comes to, sports psychologists and, that kind of thing as well. So how much is that going to help players? Because, I mean, to go back to like a team like England, right? You have to think that, yes, there is talent, obviously, but like with baseball and stuff, right? A lot of it is mental, right? It's belief. Yeah. It's like that, like the little engine that could. It's like they aren't much, but they believe that they can be, the best, right? And if some of that Sri Lanka can adopt, I think that would take them a long way in performing well at big tournaments, whether it's the men or the women, I think, because, we've seen that kind of faltering against big teams in big tournaments. So you're hopeful as you would be. I mean, you are, Mark.
I can't see the point of supporting the team and not trying to see the positivities of it. Supporting any team that you support in any sport is more or less almost always a melancholy pursuit, right? Only ever one team can win, right? That's why I think it must be really boring being an Australian cricket fan, or really boring to support Real Madrid, right?
Not boring.
It's boring.
But what about wallowing in misery? I mean, there are many people
they're winning so much. It's sad.
Yeah. Like it's been a while since Sri Lanka have been winning so much. It's been sad, right? And also, I also think the very nature of being a sports fan is that in a way the losses seem to live longer with you than the wins, right? When you talk to I think this is something that particularly happens in cricket when you talk to players, or you hear players talk, or you hear coaches talk, and they'll talk about, we won this series, then we won this series, then we went to the World Cup, and we didn't quite make it to the semi-finals, but we had 2 or 3 good wins. Yeah. And you're like, all I remember was thinking, oh, man, we won that game by the skin of our teeth. We won that series by the skin of our teeth. Okay, there was one good performance, and then you went to the World Cup and you were dreadful. right? Why didn't you all win it? But so I think to a degree, everyone has a different experience. But for the fans, for us lot, the losses, I think it's because it's our expectations, right? I think with me, definitely from a Sri Lanka perspective, I'm so emotionally tied into it that I've got to the stage. I'm okay with the losing as long as I can see some sort of improvement or where or how we can put a team together, and then I can rationalize, right, in 2 years' time, these players are going to have a little bit more experience and they're going to be slightly better. I'll go on, Dom. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think to follow up on Estelle's point, the mental bit is really, really, really important. And I think this is something players are investing in. I saw on Instagram stories, I think Kusal Mendes posted a story about working with a life coach after the Durham incident and sort of thinking about how to reset himself after failures, how to recover and not just perform physically well, but also mentally prepare. So seeing a couple of players taking advantage of that is a big step forward. And we've seen that in the personal improvements of both Pathum and Kusal Mendes. And I think that little engine that could story that Estelle was mentioning, it's the New Zealand factor, right? New Zealand might underwhelm in series coming up to the big ones. But when they're in those big games, even though they don't have the side that looks like they should be able to beat India or England or one of the more favored sides, they're always able to pull it together on their day and put on a big match performance. And that was kind of the story of Sri Lankan cricket in the late 90s and early 2000s, because pound for pound, yes, they had some absolutely fantastic players. But you look at the Indian sides that they played against, you look at the Australian sides that they played against, those had superstars that outstripped Sri Lanka. We can kind of mythologize the past and talk about, oh, we had great players. We did have great players. But what made them great was being able to overcome the best opposition. Not just sometimes, but constantly fight them and earn their respect. So I think that's the mentality that is needed, that last ingredient. We're starting to put the pieces of talent together. We're finding match winners. But how can we stitch that all together in a framework that looks like a team? And that's, to me, the thing that still has to be proven. I'm kind of in the middle between Estelle and Mark on this, where I share Mark's optimism. I can see the product. But like Estelle, I can't believe the product is going to happen until I actually see it on the field.
Should we get back to talk about today's match? Because we're obviously drifted off into whether or not we can win the next 8 World Cups. So slightly disappointed for Chandimal that he got out on 93. It was a badly selected shot. I think he would have thought he was gonna. He would have got that over and got to. He clearly wanted to get a century before the end of the day's play. Yeah, absolutely fine. Extraordinary stat. He's never got out in the 90s, considering he's played 90 Test matches. Esther, it's a little bit forgotten how good a cricketer he actually is, isn't it?
It is, and I think a lot of that has to do with all this, outside the field kind of stuff about Chandimal and how's he in the team and how does he get into the white ball teams and all of that. And it almost, I think, a couple of years came to a stage where people were afraid to say something good about him because you'd be called you'd be accused of being paid off to say good things and stuff like that. But I think, again, to remind people also, he's taken the number 3 spot, which is like it's not his position to bat, right? He's batting the low middle order, but given that the team needed him to do that, he's stepped up and he's taken on that responsibility and he's been so good at it. I think that continues to deserve props, I think, because it's very easy to sit back and say, look, I'm a senior. Whoever is coming into the side needs to come in at 3 and adjust to that position. I've already made my spot at number 5, 6, and I'm happy to stay there. But instead, like, I don't know whether he's actually said that and they forced him to bat at 3, but I'm saying, like, I mean, it's commendable, right? That he's taken on that challenge and he's actually been successful at it. Even today, I thought, like, the intent that he showed was really good early on, particularly in that innings. And yes, it's disappointing to get out to a reverse sweep, and I'm sure there'll be lots of criticism about the shot selection. But that's the type of cricket you play now, right? It's not like in the 90s or early 2000s where you hardly see a reverse sweep. Like a great batter would never play a reverse sweep. It's a very common occurrence now. So I don't think it's like playing a drive and getting out to me. I think because it's not something that you don't see. It's something that's common, and it's something that players practice um, in the nets and are frequently, like, um, looking at to play in games. So I don't think you can particularly be critical of that shot per se, but he'd of course be disappointed. And as Mark said, like, it's crazy to think that that's the first time he's got out in the 90s, because he's played such a volume of test matches, right? I think it's only after a player like Chandimal is gone is when you would probably be able to recognize how good he's been for the test side in particular, because he's made a lot of runs, I think, in particularly in that 2020 to 23 type time period. Unfortunately, Sri Lanka didn't have continuous tests, but he was making runs in every game that he played. So like he's, I think, been that kind of stable middle order bat for Sri Lanka, and of course versatile, right? Like I said, coming up the order is great, but also the fact that he was able to keep and fill that gap as well for Sri Lanka. So he's given them options. I think that's the most important thing. Like he's the type of player who's been flexible. He's great in the field. He's kept his fitness up. I think that's another thing. I think he is about my age, but he's continuously been, like, he's been fit, right? There's never been a question about injuries or fitness or whether he can get through a day batting or that sort of stuff. So I think overall, like, he's been really a solid player for Sri Lanka.
Chamath, just a reminder, if you don't know this already, we do put this show out as a podcast. So if you can only catch the first 22 minutes of it and you will listen to the end, I don't know how much longer we've got. You can listen to it on Spotify, on Apple, on all your other wherever you get your podcasts as well. So do hit subscribe and follow on those as well. It does help us out. Chamath's written, the first 25 balls Chandy played again after Udara got out took all the pressure out of Pathum, and you could see how he used his experience playing against spin. I think that's quite a very, very useful point to make here, Dom, that it's having, we can talk about how great Pathum is, but Chandy and the other seniors, and it feels like every series we lose a senior. They've done a lot to bring Pathum and the other kind of youngster players through, right? Including the job that was done today.
Yeah. I kind of saw Chamath's point, and I thought this is exactly what I was thinking. The first 16 balls, I think he scored 24 runs, and he made it clear, just like Pathum did, I'm not here just to stick about. I'm here to score runs. And it allowed Pathum to kind of tick over the strike, continue to remain comfortable, and reverse the pressure on Bangladesh. So that was so key. It was such a key point in the match. And to Estelle's points, I agree with them all. To go up to 3 and to be averaging 50, 3 has, with the exception of Kumar Sangakkara, 3 has basically been the toughest spot for any Sri Lankan batter to face, right? Because you have to be good against pace, you have to be good against spin, you have to be able to handle all kinds of situations and conditions. And Chandy has been so good at it late in his career. I love that he's bringing his attacking flair back, because there were those times when he was scoring runs, but he had to kind of defend first and play it slowly. And that's not his natural game. When he first broke into the Sri Lankan squad, so he was an attacking batter. He played big drives. He was aggressive. And to see that come back into his game at this point in his career to help Sri Lanka actually win matches and provide the impetus, that's really, really fantastic to see. And the reverse sweep, he scored tons of runs off the reverse sweep today. He was reverse sweeping constantly, and he was using it to put the Bangladeshi bowlers off their lines and lengths. And if he gets out to it on 93, I'll take the 93 runs and be very happy with it. Obviously we want him to get that century, but the 93 is more than good enough. The other thing I'll add about the getting out in the 90s, the other thing that makes it more astonishing is he scored 34 test 50s So he's been there 34 times, gotten out before 134 times, and this was the first time he got out in the 90s.
It's incredible. One other player did get out. Let's get to Nilan's question again. By the way, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, leave us your comments, leave us your questions. We'll try and get through as many of them as possible. Probably only got another 10 minutes or so left, so get them in now. Nilan has written, one thing which has been disappointing is Udara hasn't fielded well, has looked good when he has batted, but not taken his opportunity after waiting so long. Please, he's then said, please tell me if I'm asking too many questions. You're not asking too many questions. Just keep conversing in the comments. We love all that. I don't think that Udara's batting has been that bad. And actually, considering that, you know, I'm going to sound ageist. Obviously, I'm not ageist because I'm much older than anyone playing since Angelo's retired. I think the fact he's come in at age 31 after playing so much first-class cricket, I don't think it was ever going to be a drop him in and he's going to start scoring centuries straight away. I think he's got to be somebody, and again, he's hamstrung by the fact that we play so little Test cricket. He's going to be someone who's going to feel his way through this level. People will be saying, yeah, but we're playing Bangladesh. But yeah, Bangladesh's bowling attack, you might look at and think is quite mediocre, but they are still playing at much more high intensity than every first-class team is in Sri Lanka. So this is a much higher level than he's played at ever. On top of all that, he must be nervous that it's his Test match. And on top of all that, he's got his father is Maroof in the commentary booth, been doing the best impression of a Sri Lankan dad we've ever seen, and getting angry with him at every single thing that he does. So I mean, the psychology of it is totally against him. He's going to cut through that. I thought he was good value for his 40 today. Again, obviously, we'd have loved to see him push on, but I don't think, Estelle, it's realistic for us to expect him to come in and score centuries from the get-go, right?
Yeah, I think you make a valid point about the intensity and the quality of bowling attacks that he would have faced in the past. I think particularly important to remember that, because, you know, we've spoken about the value of players coming in with like 50, 60 averages, having played first class cricket in Sri Lanka. Of course, things are getting better with, teams being kind of put through their paces, and this the provincial tournaments coming in, but you still are not going to get that international quality, right? Because whatever international players that you have are going to be split into different teams. But I think Udara's problem is that it feels like he's trying to do too much. It feels like he's trying to go really hard at it and not really taking his time, when you would think that he would kind of have that leeway, right, where he would be able to maybe take a bit more time and get things going. I don't know whether that's naturally how he plays in domestic cricket now, because as we've seen, right, cricket has moved forward from the days where you would be happy with 60 in the first session, right? That's not how things go anymore. You want to play aggressive cricket, and particularly on tracks like this, when I think Sri Lanka are really looking at putting a massive total on the board quickly, because they think that batting's not going to be that hard for Bangladesh in the second innings. I think they also, and I would echo that sentiment in feeling that they're lucky they got Bangladesh out for 240, because it didn't seem like that kind of track, right? It looked like a track that you can make a lot more runs on. So just that, I think, for Mudara has been a bit of the fact that it feels like, and I mean, it's understandable, right? You're coming into a side, you want to establish yourself, and you have only 4 innings to do it, and you don't know when you're going to play another test, right? You're not playing it frequently enough, so you want to prove yourself and you want to show that you're capable. And I mean, he's probably got aspirations to play in white ball cricket as well, right? And he knows that if he can put on a good show, the possibilities of him getting those opportunities is also higher. So that would be, to me, the only thing is that, like, it feels like he's trying too hard to go too hard too quickly. But otherwise, I mean, the way he's batting, you feel like, you know, he's batting well, so the big runs won't be that far away.
I'm going to put this comment on screen, right? It's from Kassan. He said, to see how bad Udara really is, he needs to play with a good team. Otherwise, Pathum has to get out early. Lol. I'm not liking those negative vibes there. I mean, why do I want to see how bad a Sri Lankan player is? Come on, this is a pool of positivity, right?
Yeah.
We're only looking for good vibes here, right, Dom?
Yeah, I think the stroke play to me has been really good, and he's looked really good. In fact, this reminds me a little bit of when Sadira debuted in 2017, where he looked good and made these 30s and 40s. The problem that Sadira had was not being able to kick on, and he started as an opener as well. We'll have to see, what is his off-stump judgment look like when that's an issue. But to the point that you made, Mark, about international cricket, Nahid Rana is bowling at 150 kph here. That is not easy for anyone to deal with. Anyone who says it is, please go out there and show us that you can smash the ball around doing that. So I think there's the adjustment. I think he's got to think about, I think the clock is shorter because there are people behind him, someone like a Kamil Mishara, who will naturally have time to sort of progress. And because he's an older player, he doesn't have as much time. But I think I like what I've seen, and we just need to see it manifest itself in actual big runs.
Couple of more.
Yeah, one more thing I think to add is that just on Nahid Rana, I think Sri Lankan fans also need to get past the idea that this is Bangladesh from the early 2000s, right? This is not.
No.
Obviously not, right? They've got a lot better. They've got a really good fast bowling unit. Their batters are much better, right? So it's I think there should be a bit more respect, I think, to the quality of players they're bringing as well. It's not like the early days when they made Test cricket and Sri Lanka used to play them every couple of, every year or so, couple of tests, just so their batters could kind of get the hundreds under their belt. I remember like every test match you'd have 300s from Sri Lanka, right?
Yeah.
This is not that Bangladesh anymore. They're quality side. They've got some quality players in that, even without Shakib, right? Who we love to hate, but have to admit is one of the best we've seen, right?
Absolutely. And Mushfiqur, I saw a stat, I think in the last 3 or 4 years, he has an average of 55, which is like one of the best in the world. They've won series in New Zealand. This is not a no-name Bangladesh team. Yes, we want to roll over them and steamroll them, but performing well against them is huge. I think the other point that I'll make is Bangladesh's bowlers showed how well our bowlers bowled yesterday. Anything marginally offline or off length, our batters put away. There were very few, apart from Thurindu Ratnayaka, I think there were very few deliveries that were bad balls bowled yesterday. They kept it tight. They restrained the run rate. So kind of a shout out retroactively to how well the bowlers put together a game plan and actually executed that game plan yesterday.
Let's go to a few more comments. Opening innings is hard work. Look at how Australia's been struggling opening lately. Got to give more confidence to the lad and a few more chances to see how he handles it. That's from Asha and Silva, Udara. And Chamath has written something along the same lines. I hope Laru gets the next WI series. You can see his potential and stroke play of his. Might take a few series to settle down, but him and Pathum on top going hard will be a good option. I think it's interesting that they're both right-handers as well, which I know was a big thing from the last test where everyone got excited about that. But it's interesting Sri Lanka have kind of gone back to that in this day and age. But this is Sri Lankan cricket. You can't predict what's going to happen, right? Angelo might well captain us at the next World Cup. One more comment from Neil, and then let's wrap it up. One big positive is Asita Fernando. He's been bowling so well recently and toiled really hard. He had that fighting spirit we need when chips are down to get us wickets. 100% that man has a fighting spirit. You go like... You'd back him in any situation, do anything, wouldn't you, Estelle? He just finds a way, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's another one of those. He's one of those players who has that belief, right? Which we were talking about.
Yeah.
He's not the quickest bowler. He's not the tallest bowler. I remember that series where Sri Lanka's fast bowlers won them a series in Bangladesh. You remember Kasun Rajitha and Asita Fernando got wickets. And you put the two side by side, who would you be imagining bowling bouncers and trying to, hit people in the head, Kasun, right? Because he's like taller and bigger, and but it was Asita. It was him who was being that aggressor, and that's the type of player he is. And we always think and talk about that Asia Cup where he got those boundaries, which took Sri Lanka to the final. That
Yeah.
kind of thing. He's just that player, right? He has that belief and fight in him. And I think you now with Test cricket in particular and his bowling, you can't take away from the fact that he's got real skills. It's not just belief alone. He's got real skills, and it's been recognized. He's gone and played county cricket as well. So it's just that we don't get to see him as often because of the lack of Test cricket, and that I think means that players like him are underappreciated.
Yeah, there's a good piece that a friend of the show, Fidel, has written in ESPN Cricket Info about it. So actually, it's a really heartbreaking piece.
Yeah.
Actually, it will from a Sri Lankan fan perspective, it's quite tragic. We've gone on at length about how the big three aren't doing enough to save not Sri Lankan cricket. They're definitely not doing enough to do that to save Test cricket. But I mentioned earlier, this idea of turtles in the bay ready to surf in and save the day. Asith Fernando is definitely a teenage mutant Sri Lankan turtle, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like,
I was going to say, is it to Estelle's point on the Asia Cup, he averages 3 in first class cricket. And so to go out there and just slog 2 boundaries in 2 balls is just that is to me Asita Fernando, just that belief that despite any other things that you might believe or think about him, he's going to go out there and give 100% and do that.
Guys, should we wrap that up for today? We'll be back tomorrow. We'll figure out what Sri Lanka's plans are in terms of trying to win it. Are they going to score another 80 or 90 runs and declare it and try and get them all out and give us another opportunity to watch them bat? Or are they going to try and bat through most of tomorrow, which I suspect will be the plan tonight, bat through most of tomorrow, and then give themselves 2 days to bowl Bangladesh out and get the win? Let's see. Hopefully, the next few days, we see a Test win. I'll be honest, guys. I don't want to know how we go about losing it from here. But this is Sri Lanka, right? And as optimistic as I am, possibly the most optimistic Sri Lankan cricket fan in the world, I'm not going to count us out of losing this match, right? Absolutely anything can happen. So stick with us. We'll be back the next few days. See you all later. Bye.